Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's February 8th. This will be our chart listing for the day. Another big down day. This is really looking like topping action. We need to trade on down here first. I mean, we could still bounce off this midline again, but it really looks like we're trying to top out here. This day ends up as a inside day. But you can kind of see how we're working sideways, and we traded down. I'm sorry, we closed down considerably off the high from yesterday. So we have a lower high in place now. If we break lower here, especially because right now this is just an inside bar, we could open up and turn higher here. It's a little before the market closes. It's only about 3:20. No, I'm sorry, the market has closed. It's 4:20. I was thinking I was doing this a little bit before the market closed, but I just looked at the clock wrong. Um, Anyway, it's at the market has closed, so it's after 4 o'clock. I'm not sure why we're not seeing any. Okay, well, the market doesn't open back up till 5, so I'm telling you, I'm really off, y'all. I appreciate all. Just real quickly, I'll say this: thank you for all the notes regarding the loss of my dog. Some people probably think that's silly, but me and him were really close, and he was more like a brother or a son to me than he really was a dog. So we've been together a long time, and the way we came together was special as well. Those of you that heard that story, it's pretty interesting and special story. But anyway, um, I'm missing him, and it really is like losing a family member. At least it was to me. So hopefully in a couple of days I can kind of get back to keeping it off my mind and moving forward. But it's really been struggling today, just keeping my mind straight. So I think I spoke about it yesterday, but my trading's pretty limited right now. I did take a trade today, one trade, but I'm just really not there. And that's one thing I will say that through experience is anytime you have anything emotional, anything negative in your life going on, refrain from your trading because those things tend to manifest in your trading and they can cause you a lot of problems. Whenever you're trading, you need to be concentrating and 100% there, and you need to be able to feel the flow of the chart. And once you can read a chart, you'll understand this a lot better. But you kind of get in a rhythm with the price move, and you kind of begin to feel it and anticipate it in advance. But it's a skill, and it takes a while to get there. But once you understand what I'm saying there, you'll get why I'm saying you have to be really concentrating and 100% there. Because if you're not, you can't get in that rhythm, and you can't feel that flow of the chart, and you'll make mental mistakes. You'll second guess yourself. For whatever reason, trading is very similar to golf. You have to be very emotionally committed to it, and there's a lot of it is mental. And so if you're not there 100% mentally, your game will suffer, and you see it in golf. If you've ever played golf, then you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just aren't feeling it, and then the next time you go play, and it feels effortless, and you just float. Your game flows, and the trading is very similar to that. It's amazing since I do play golf and trade as well. I've been able to see the correlations, and it's amazing how well trading correlates to many of the similarities of what it takes to be able to be successful at golf. You need them to be able to be successful at trading as well. So, but enough about that. Let's get to the chart. You can see here we have made a lower high. This is just an inside bar. I'd like to see a lower low here and then when we could just get two legs of correction and go higher, but I'd like to see at a minimum two legs of correction here uh, to assume we may try to push lower. This looks a lot like a topping action, so we'll see what happens. But you can see a very negative day. We started off sideways, and then prices turned back down again. I'm sorry, let me back up. We traded down and then started sideways. And at some point we broke lower and we made a measured move down equal to the width of that original range. And so we got almost a perfect measured move, and that's where prices for the most part, found a bottom today, although we did close near the lows today. So this is a negative day, closed very near the lows. So this is a very negative day here. Doesn't mean that we can't turn up tomorrow, but it looks a lot like topping action. So we'll see what happens. But let's flip over to the intraday chart, the 2,000 tick chart, and we'll go through the trades. Okay, here's a look at the chart. You can see there's a big, long downtrend channel, and we were really weak. We couldn't get back to the trend line up here. I put this green channel on here just to show it. I didn't trade it, but I did put it on there to show you that it's there. And it's obviously valid. You can see prices playing both sides of that midline all the way down. But we never could get back up to that trend line to even test it again. We came up weak every time. So even though we didn't go much lower than there's really strong support right around 41.26 or so, that measured move. This is the original channel up here, and if you do a measured move based on the height of that range, you can see that would be from this line down to this dash line. You can see that's where we found support. We did push below it a couple of times, but prices couldn't sustain any push down there, and then you see we came back and we're on top of it until we went into the close there. So that would have been a great target for a measured move. If you saw this green channel, yes, it's valid. I don't think you need it. I think you really need to play it. I started off with a range and we went lower. I'm playing this channel, and then this and this. So that's how I played it. I think that was the easier, more direct way to play it. Because if you just played the big channel, you didn't get any trades. So we couldn't get back to that trend line. So it might have helped you with the midline, realizing that we were kind of hanging around below that midline. But we got above it a couple of times and still couldn't get back up to the trend line. So anyway, let's zoom in here, go through the trades. And again, there's not a lot of them today, but it's just a lot of flip-flopping and back and forth, and not a lot of setups that that are sure things that I really like. And again, part of this could be because I'm not watching the market as closely. I did sit here and watch it this morning, and I took one trade. I think I told you that earlier. And but I just didn't do much today, and that's just, again, mentally I'm not there, and so I'm not going to try to force trades and force myself into trading when I'm not mentally prepared for it. So the fact that I'm not looking at it like I normally look at it, I don't know if that's affecting the chart lessons or not, but I don't think it is, because I mean, if the trade's there, I'm going to show it. I'll point it out to you, and I just don't see the trades, and maybe I'm not in the ebb and flow like I should be, so I'll throw it out there. But I just don't think there's that many setups. Even the ones that I do see that are good, you don't get a signal bar or something of that nature, and so it's just not setting up really well. But 7 o'clock came right in here, and this is really hard to trade. You can tell we're picking up support here, and we did have a trend down. We had a break, another move down to a new low, and so you'd expect maybe we bounce out of there. And if you look at the measured move, it would be something like that, and you can see we couldn't get down there. And a lot of times that leads to a bigger rally in the opposite direction, and notice today it didn't. So we did end up pushing much lower. So then I would go and measure this whole first leg. Actually, I think it's down to here. And then look for the measured move off that. And here's the highest point of the correction. And notice where we made that measured move back. We made a perfect measured move. Bounced. We ended up going lower again, but there's that, I mean, almost to the tick. We got a couple of extra ticks or so there. Not much. So that would have been a great target. And when we kept going lower, I mean, we did bounce pretty soon after that and got a pretty good correction, but we went lower again after that. So anyway, oops, went too far there. But 7 o'clock came just as we're coming down through here, bottoming out, and we're just chopping along. We actually had a triple test You might even call that a triple test, but we made a significantly lower low there. So I'd wait on a higher low, which comes here, and no setup, and then we get a triple test. So I like this one. Plenty of room back to the highs. If you're going to enter, that's where you'd want to do it. And I did mark it green because even though we do have a triple test there, we tried on several bars to go higher and couldn't after we just came off the low. And so that's a concern that makes that trade less than perfect, but it's still a triple test, really strong signal bar. Looks like rejection when we broke lower. So the odds are we'll probably go back to the high, but just be real careful with it. I marked it green. So we did have another two-legged drop down. And you got a failed break lower. You could argue for that one to be green. That's one right there. I sometimes like these trades. This signal bar wasn't perfect, but it still closes in the upper 2/3. So I think it closes in the upper third of the bar, and it's a second entry long. It's a failed breakout. There's reasons they were way away from the EMA. There's reasons to like it, but it's not a perfect setup. You're being a little aggressive there. You see it would have paid off. That would have been a great trade right there. You still may not have got a runner, but if you did, it was a really great trade. So, I mean, the reason you take these is because you're trying to catch a runner. This is the place you're very likely to catch one. If you're going to try to pick and choose on your runners and only trade them away occasionally, these failed breakouts of important support or failed breakout of support of important resistance, those are the places you catch important highs and lows of the day. And I've shown these over and over the years how these are, if you can catch these, I mean, you're being a little aggressive, so you need to be a skilled chart reader to really trade these. But it's a chance to catch one, catch a nice move. And since you're so far away from the EMA, unless there's a trap or something here, which it could be, you're more than likely to go at least back to the EMA, even if you're going to turn lower. So this thing takes off. Great move up. I don't really see another chance. You get a high or low here, but you move too far, and you can't trade that as a reversal because it's not a reversal. So, but we run up, get a close outside, move to a new high. We try to go higher once. We turn down again, try to go higher twice. That looks a little too congested. There is a nice signal bar here, and there is a hidden second entry there as well. And it's a lower high, but it looks a little congested. But it's another one you can say, hey, maybe you mark that green. Drops on down, pulls back. I really looked at that. Looks like a leg down, two-legged correction, second leg down correction. So that's where it looks like a failure to me. Again, I marked it green. It's not ideal, but it does look like a failure. And we just came off the high, so maybe we're headed back to the low. It is the first break of this khaki colored channel, so there's good odds that we're probably going to break lower and try to test that low, which we do. And then of course we bounce here. You get a higher low here, it's right into the EMA though. Looks a little sideways and congested. I don't think you want to take that. Runs up, you get a break, it tries to go higher once, twice, and even 3 times. There is a first entry, second entry. So when it breaks below that bar, it's a second entry, but that's too bullish, so it doesn't qualify. And you drop on down here and you test this original low 2 more times. Again, I think that looks a little congested there, but there is a leg up and a leg down, but it looks a little sideways. It doesn't look like total rejection out of there. But if we push up through the EMA and pull back and get a close above the EMA, then I like going long there because we should be headed back to the highs again. And sure enough, we go all the way to the highs and get a failed breakout. I didn't mark this one. It's another one you might take. But there's no break of this trend line at all, anything. And we just kind of push up and make that failed break higher and it turns down. We are a good bit away from the EMA there. Generally, I will tell you to wait on a lower high here. I think that's the smarter move. But you don't get one. It just takes off. So if you didn't enter there, you don't get a trade. And there's no other entry here. It just runs. You really get 2 legs down, 2 strong legs down with very little correction at all. And there they are. We actually get a little more than 2 legs down. You can see that there. But it turns out to be a nice trade. If I mean, it turns out to be a nice move, but you just don't get a chance to enter it. So, sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you there. It didn't turn out to be a nice trade. It turns out to be a really nice move, but no chance to really get in it, unfortunately. So, and then it bounces out of there, and you get a first entry, second entry. Yeah, there's a move up and a little this, but this is just sideways. I'd look at this as a new leg up with the first entry, second entry, and it turns down right off the previous support line. Now it's acting as resistance. Normally, I'd say you want to wait to let it test this a couple times before you go short, but it is a second entry short. We did fell out of this and didn't come back and test it, and there is plenty of room back to the EMA. So maybe I like taking that trade, to be honest with you. And then from there you try to go higher once, twice, and it fails. So if it breaks lower there, it's a failed second entry long, and I like taking that one. You really don't have this trend line confirmed yet, but that is a lower high. I'd call that a double top, but it's really a little slightly lower high. And we tried to go higher twice there, failed. So I like going short on that one. It's a little aggressive, but there's no reason you can't take that if you understand what's going on there. And then of course we bounce. You got this little channel working up, and we just turn back down again. No real chance at a setup here. But if you just wait and be patient on a good one, a few minutes later you get a true second entry short right off a confirmed trend line. Right here, just go short one tick below that. There's actually a lower high here too, but by that time, I wouldn't. If I didn't enter here, I don't think I would enter here because it looks like you're going to start working sideways and find some support there. But it does push on through, and then you might even look at that as a failure because you got a first entry. Technically, it's not because you got a first entry and then you went lower and then you got a second entry. So this is also a failure and a second entry short. If you just look at it how it looks like this would be your failure right here, but technically by the counts it's not. And because we made a new high here, this is technically a first entry, second entry, so technically that's a failure. And you might trade that one as a failure too. And you can see it acts like it trapped people. And then now you've met your measured move. But notice how we don't get rejection there. It takes it a minute to bounce out of there, and it breaks the trend line, and then the bottom falls out of it. And again, I don't see any way to really enter that. It just takes off. We do shoot through the midline, pull back and test it, and turn down again. But you got to go short here at what I think is the low of the day at that point. Yep. And 2-bar matching low, and we had a really big move down way away from the EMA. It looks congested. You just can't take that. We do pull back and get a first entry, second entry, but signal bar doesn't qualify. You might say, okay, well, I'll take this bar. Well, it's not engulfing, so you can't enter till here. Now you're right back at the support. So even though it would have worked, you can't enter that trade. It bounces, gives you a first entry, second entry, but again, the signal bar is too neutral. You could also look at that as a triple test, but that is a very neutral bar, and I just don't think you can use that for a signal bar. You drop down here again, get a first entry, second entry, and you could look at that as a triple test. The problem is we came off the low, couldn't get back to the high, and now we can't even make a new low. Really, we're just kind of working sideways here. So you could call that a triple test, a second entry long, decent signal bar. So there's another one you might argue, hey, that ought to at least be green, but you're just taking a big chance because that looks a little congested. And you can see it would have worked. First entry. I guess there's a second entry right there. There's no setup though. You actually get a triple test here. Notice how you tested it once, twice, 3 times. There's also a hidden second entry in there. Here's your new high, first entry, turns back down when it breaks higher, second entry. I don't know that I trade that trade. I just sit tight. We have had our break and new low, so we're looking for something to go long here, but I don't see it on that one. Um, Runs up real fast, comes back. First entry, comes back here. And so when it breaks above this bar, that's a second entry long. And you can clearly see that trend line holding right there. And the trend channel looks good on this side. So what do I think? I think maybe you go long there. It's a little aggressive. I didn't mark it first time, but maybe you go long there. And then suddenly this kind of dries up. And next thing you know, they're rocketing down. But you have this higher low here. Right, notice we're working off that key entry point, working up, and we are looking for a possible move up now. It comes back really strongly, and then you get a triple test. So, and it is a slightly higher low. I just call that a double bottom, but you could argue it's a triple test. So maybe you take that long, and that turns out to be a really good trade. You wouldn't expect that to happen, but that's those triple tests. That's important low, important lows and important highs, and especially if you get a failed breakout, they can be very powerful entry points. So then you get two clear legs back in the second entry here, but that's too congested. Inside bar, just skip it. And this does run on up. I don't see anything else here that I would necessarily take as a trade. We actually start working lower here. When we drop down, there is a second entry short right here. Notice this new low, first entry, second entry. But that signal bar is way too neutral. I don't think you can take that trade. Notice that's the first close outside this cyan trend channel. But I'd also draw my trend off that first bar just in case, and notice we do kind of turn down off that bar. And we actually get a break and then move to a new low, and then we kind of reverse up a little bit again. But we're just bouncing along here. You can clearly see the break, try to move to a new low, and here we did move to a new low while you get a triple test. Maybe you go long there. Then it comes back again. This bar is not perfect. It's close to being in the top 1/3. I marked it just in case. You might take it. You're being a little aggressive there, but there's no reason you might not take that trade. And it turns out to be another nice move. Now you've got a second entry on a failed break out the top. It's basically a double bottom. First entry, second entry, way away from the EMA. If you draw your trend line here, this one probably should be, might even be like that right there. I think I like that one better. So I'm going to mark that one green, but it is a second entry on a breakout. So, and if you catch that, you really catch a nice run here. And notice we drop down. You get a first entry, drop down again, and you get a second entry, and where it fails is when it drops one tick below this bar. Your safety stop has to go above the highest bar. So when this actually broke higher first and then turned down. So maybe you go short on the engulfing bar. I don't think I'd wait till down here because now you're getting back close to support again. So this is the one I would probably take, and I would take it on the engulfing bar. And it does drop on down, makes that new low. Try to go lower twice, but you just can't go long there on a high or low. We end up coming back once, twice. Again, the signal bar wasn't good enough. You do make a lower high here with plenty of room back, so I like going short right there. This really looks like two legs, but it doesn't even get back to the EMA. So I don't think you can take that. If you look at it, you can see that the signal bar it's a very bearish, but it's an inside bar. You get a first entry here. You can't take. You've already had your break, and easily a new low, and without a second entry, there's nothing. Now, you may go long here. It's aggressive, but there's a double bottom there basically. That's a nice reversal bar. It opened here, traded way down here before reversing. So that's rejection off this new lows, and some buying came in. So plenty of room back to the EMA. So you may buy that one. Again, it's aggressive. And then we just chop sideways. There's nothing in there. That we just chop sideways into the 230, and that pretty much did it for the day. So yeah, not a ton of trades today. A lot of price movement, but a lot of it was reversing and chopping in different directions. And so we had a pretty good trend down here, and that's really all you could say about the day. The rest of the time we were just kind of chopping sideways. All this is sideways stuff, and pretty much from here on, that's all sideways stuff. So there's a couple of smaller trends in there. You might have got a chance. Well, we just went through the trade, so you saw what was there, but not the greatest trading day. It is what it is. Not much you can do about it. And I think I did show you that the width of the range was the measured move, and if you use this for a target to the downside, you'd have got out pretty much at the lows. And so, yeah, you were better off to look for your measured move on this range. Of course, there is a measured move to here, and you see it bounce there, but we continued to go lower, and so then I would look for this range. And even though we went slightly lower than that, you can see that pretty much was the sticking point for the rest of the day. That was where most of your support was found. Prices pushed through there a couple of times, but they could never sustain it. So all those breakouts were failing. So there it is. There's your trades. That's what it looked like today. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to wrap it up. This is how I see it. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. Believe it or not, it's almost Thursday. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.